Oh, hello. Welcome back to That GD Show. I'm Dave Warnock.
Hey,
and who is this?
I'm Genevieve.
Hey,
How's
Genevieve.
it going?
How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I've had a really good day. How about yourself?
Another day in paradise, you know?
Yeah. I will say I have not been able to calm my jitters because I am so excited about our guest today. I mean, you know, playing it cool and all, but you know.
Well, try to keep your cool. You know what? It's good to have jitters. If jitters mean that you really care about what you're doing and care about what's happening. So just consider that a compliment to our guest. And without further ado, let's bring our guest on. Hello, Matt.
Hey, how you guys doing? You don't have to be jittery. I'm just some dude that talks a lot.
I know.
So happy to be here.
Thanks. We're so happy to have you. I won't age myself, or I guess I will. I've been watching you since I was in high school. Yeah. I don't
there
mean to
you
age
go,
myself
Matt.
or lack thereof. My apologies, you guys.
No, it's fair. I get that quite a lot. You do something for 16 years, you're going to meet somebody who's been watching you since they were born.
Right?
I was watching you when I was in kindergarten.
I know it.
Yeah. No, that's a tribute to your longevity. That's a compliment, I think. You know, you don't do something that long unless you're really good at it. That's my opinion.
You could be right. I think people could argue otherwise, but I'm happy either way, and I'm actually happy to meet Genevieve today. So that was really cool. But how you doing, Dave?
I'm good. I say I'm good. I guess I'm as good as can be expected. I'm tired of COVID. I'm tired of not being able to do the things I want to do. You know, back when you and I met, a little over 2 years ago, Matt, I was traveling a lot, speaking at a lot of different things. You've had that shut down too, but with my ALS, I just keep thinking, you know what? I've got limited time and this fucking pandemic is stealing it from me. But I'm making the best of it. I finished my book. It's getting edited. Started this show. We got that going on. So there's a lot of positive.
See, all my friends have finished their book, and I haven't.
I was going to ask you, are you writing one?
Gosh. Yeah. When you listed questions that you shouldn't ask, that's definitely one of them. So much stuff came up because I've got the name of the book. I've got the outline. I've got some of it done. And then I got divorced, and then I had to worry about some health issues. And then, I got distracted by another project, and then COVID, and then, oh my gosh. So yeah, I'm not good at writing books. I'm good at coming up with the idea, but not
it's
good.
Work.
Yeah.
And listen, I gotta push back on it. COVID is not an excuse. It gives you every reason to hunker down and write because you can't do anything else.
No, actually, I can still do lots of stuff, including.
Oh, that's true.
So one of the things is that I have a house and a mortgage, and half of the income that I had before all this happened, and half of that again after the divorce. And so if I stream a lot on Twitch, and I say they do it for fun and for lunch money, but every penny that comes in there helps out and keeps me alive. So
that makes sense. Yeah, you do that. You do
Plus
what you do.
it's fun.
Yeah.
So if I play games for 8 hours, that's work.
I see.
Just
I didn't realize that. Well, Genevieve, any pressing questions you have for Matt?
Oh God.
Right out.
Pressing, no, but I will say, I'm, like I said, you're kind of infamous in this whole scene. And, I've heard your story, but, for anybody watching, I'd just love to hear sort of just like a recap of your journey, because from what I understand, like you almost became a minister, and to go from that to the ACA and now to the Atheist Experience that you've been doing for so long. Like, I mean, that's just so fascinating.
Yeah, the short version is I walked down the aisle at the age of 5 or so and accepted Jesus into my heart. And that, if you hear my mom tell the story now, they weren't sure that it really took. But throughout the whole time I was growing up, pretty much everybody expected me to be a preacher. And my mom pretty much told me that God told her I was going to be a preacher. And I didn't want to be. And when I graduated high school, I had a girlfriend. I thought we were going to get married. And I didn't know what to do. So I joined the Navy, and then we broke up. I spent 8 years in the Navy, and then I came to Austin, Texas. I was originally from Missouri, worked in the tech industry, and did not really spend any time. I was still a believer, but I didn't care. I didn't go to church. I was living a life, and it was, let me go drink and then go to the strip club and do all kinds of stuff with my friends and everything. And Jesus just wasn't important. And then I built up a career working at Dell. And when it all fell apart, I had a major crisis of conscience and faith. And I was like, wow, what am I going to do? This is God punishing me. God's punishing me because he wanted me to be a preacher. And I decided I wanted to go do fun stuff. And God just took all the fun stuff away. And so I set out. My roommate at the time was an atheist. And I set out to try to find a way to better convince him, because I didn't want to get to heaven and have God say, why is your roommate, who you love like a brother, why is he burning in hell? You had your chance. And in the course of studying to find a way to convince him, I kind of unconvinced me. And it wasn't long before I was writing about it on various websites before blogs. And somebody at work said, hey, there's this show you should watch. And I was like, and they were talking about the Atheist Experience. And I said, why the hell would I watch that? I don't want to watch a bunch of people I agree with. I want to talk to the people that I don't agree with. And they're like, oh, no. This is a call-in show. And so, I called in. And then they invited me to the after-show dinner. And then the next week I was working in the booth, screening calls and working on graphics. And shortly after that, Jeff D didn't show up. And I decided, Ashley asked me if I would host the show with him. And I said, yeah. And that was 16 and a half years ago.
Wow. That's, I love that story. I've heard that before, but now how old were you when you came to the conclusion that God was not real?
Probably 32-ish,
Okay.
because it was shortly after 9/11, and the 20th anniversary of that just hit. So
I see. Wow.
Prior to that, I know that when I was in the Navy, which I was in from 87 to 95, there was a period of time where when I got my dog tags redone, I put NRP on it, which was no religious preference, because I no longer, it's not that I stopped believing in God then. I knew I wasn't a Southern Baptist anymore, which was what had been on my dog tags before. And I just knew, okay, I believe in something, I don't know what. And so I put no religious preference on my dog tags for a while. And that was kind of the falling away period. And then when I got serious about it, around 2001, 2002, in that time frame, that's when I really found my way out.
Did you go through a period of time? I know I did. Where we've got a couple of callers here that we want to get to in just a second. But did you go through that backsliding stage? You thought, oh, well, I'm just a backslider, because as a Baptist, that's a term. Yeah. Evangelicalism refers, you're just falling away from God or running from God or angry with God.
Yeah, by the time 2001 rolled around, I basically viewed myself as someone who'd been backsliding since 1987 when I graduated high school. Because I was gung ho. I was at church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Monday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, Saturdays, plus mission trips and other stuff. I mean, I was really active. And then I left and joined the Navy and just kind of stopped caring. I still believed, but I was like most theists. Didn't know anything about what I believed at that point.
Yeah. So just were raised in it. Let's get to a call. You okay with that, Matt?
Absolutely.
This is Daryl in Kentucky. and he wants to talk
Hello?
about. Hello, Daryl.
Hello. You all hear me?
Hey, yes, you're on with Dave, Genevieve, and Matt Dillahunty. Did you want to
All
talk
right. So
about?
what I'm for.
Hi there. You wanted to talk about slavery in the Bible.
Yeah, I hear y'all talking about slavery all the time in the Bible. I wanted to address that. I want to see what y'all thought about this. Does the Creator have the right to do what He wants with His creation? Like I'm an artist,
No.
all right. I draw stick figures and I try to make them look as most like I could as celebrities. I just did one that looks like Dale Jr., but God rest his soul. But if I don't like it, I throw it away, right? Can't a creator?
I think I know who this
like
is.
that?
I think we're being trolled. I just want to give you guys a heads up.
Okay.
No, sir.
So-
No, sir. I ain't no trolling here. I'm trying to.
Okay.
Are you
so,
sure about
so,
that?
so this is real easy.
Trying to get y'all to think objectively.
Okay, I'm going to think objectively all over this. First of all, whether or not a creator can do whatever it wants with its creation is irrelevant to slavery, because slavery is about one human being owning another human being as property. So how is your question about what a God can do with its creation relevant to slavery?
I hear what you're saying, man. Hold on. I got some noise going by. Cletus, get back in your cage. Sorry, it's my kids making noise in the background. Get back in your cage.
Okay, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
This is a complete prank call. Why would you do this? What is your life like? What is your life like that you decide to call in with bullshit prank calls like this?
He's messing with
I'm a
us.
friend of Dave's.
He's messing with us. This is Captain Dadpool. He's messing with us.
Is that no?
Yes,
Oh,
Genevieve. Genevieve, I blame you for this.
I tried to do this last week. It didn't work, but
Oh man, yeah. Well, you brought up exactly what I was gonna say. Whenever I hear somebody ask me, like, "Well, doesn't God have dominion over everything? Like, He can do whatever He wants?" It's like, I'm sorry, my parents are technically my creator. Does that mean that child abuse is okay? You know, is that why any sort of punishment is fine?
Well,
Yeah.
Matt, I mean, I know this subject has come up on your show so many times, Matt. You've actually heard that argument from people legitimately, haven't you? That God can do whatever He wants with His creation, and He created us in His
I was
own
just
image.
regurgitating what I've heard, like to me several times.
Yeah, well,
That's
I mean,
the mindset they have. That's what they really been saying.
I mean, what? Tell me, Matt. I know you've talked about slavery so many times, and what are the responses you've had the most often, Matt, in regard to biblical slavery?
Oh, probably the most common is that it doesn't mean slavery the way slavery was in the United States. It's just indentured servitude, which of course is also immoral, and it's not like there were courtrooms or any way for people to appeal at those times. That's probably the most common. I was actually at a debate. I think it was the debate I did, or one of the debates I did with Matt Slick, and there were 4 different apologists standing around, and all 4 of them I was standing here and they're semicircle surrounding me to talk about slavery, and each one of them tried to use a different excuse or a different apologetic for slavery in the Bible. And it was perfect because I just paused them all and said, okay, the 4 of you work out what the right answer is with regard to slavery. And when you sort that out, come talk to me. Until then, I'm not interested in this, because clearly you guys haven't got your shit together. You don't agree. It's embarrassing to have 4 Christians standing there all offering different apologetics for the same scripture.
Wait, you were in a debate with 4 theists?
I was getting ready to go up on stage to do a debate, and 4 apologists that came to the debate
I gotcha.
gathered around me in a semicircle to challenge me on the slavery thing, and none of them had the same answers.
Wow.
Yeah, another common one is that's the Old Testament.
Yeah,
Of course.
Yep.
And
if you toss out the Old Testament, then of course you toss out original sin and every prophecy and blah, blah, blah.
Well, but you've also got New Testament referencing slavery. You've got the book of Philemon, where Onesimus is a slave, and supposedly Paul is appealing to him to take to let his slave stay with him, but he's not saying you shouldn't have a slave.
Yeah, he's not saying slavery is immoral or you shouldn't have slaves.
No.
It's, I would like you to let this slave go because he's a friend of mine. Meanwhile, if you look at elsewhere in the New Testament, what you have, wow, there's an alarm to take the trash out. What you have is instructions for slaves to obey their masters, including the cruel masters. And I don't see how that could possibly come from anyone remotely wise.
Well,
that is how you glorify God, is obeying your man, even if they're bad to you, even if they're mean, even if they abuse you, you still honor them, because honoring them is honoring God. So it's a self-defeating system.
Well, I mean, it's embarrassing in a lot of ways, because the Christians know that their Bible doesn't condemn slavery. And so if they want to maintain an adherence to the Bible as an infallible book, then they've got to find some way to defend that position. And they trip over themselves. Like you said, Matt, you've got 4 different excuses for it, and none of them make any sense. It's just an embarrassment.
You know, the classic that I always hear is, oh, it was a different time. But then you also hear that God is the same yesterday as he is today and tomorrow. And also, in the eyes of God, 1,000 years is a day. So does that mean that he condoned this behavior like 12 hours ago? Is that the timeline that we're looking at? You know, I mean, no matter which way you cut it, there is no way to justify what you see in the Old Testament, whether it's indentured servitude or slavery. But
well, we've got another call.
And then too.
Hey, Captain.
All right, I'll let y'all go.
Captain, that was
having some fun. I appreciate y'all having me.
I'm sad I didn't recognize your voice.
I did. I knew who it was. See you, buddy.
Yeah,
you picked on it really quick, Dave.
Yeah, well, we've been down this road. We've been down this road before, but
yeah, and I've been doing this for 16 years, so I have absolutely zero patience for fake calls ever.
Okay, Rick. We'll see, Ricky. All right, let's see. This one doesn't have anything on it in terms of notes, but we'll just take it and see if. Hello. Who's this?
Hello. Tom.
Hey, Tom. You're talking with Dave, Genevieve, and Matt. What can we do for you?
Okay, Planned Parenthood is jerking off on dead babies. Planned Parenthood is jerking off on dead babies. Planned Parenthood is jerking off on dead.
Bye.
Congratulations. You've managed to get the prank caller that called half of the ACA shows this week.
Oh, is that it? You recognize him?
Yeah.
What's his stick?
Some people are opposed to Planned Parenthood.
Oh, Jesus.
But also, it's kind of strange that, you know, if it were really his case, if he had some objection to abortion or Planned Parenthood, you wouldn't just say Planned Parenthood is jerking off on dead babies. I mean, that phrasing.
Yeah, bring a real argument here.
Yeah, this is like Baba Booey. This is, let me call into a show so that other people can hear that I called in. Well, congratulations. We pretty much, we're taking all comers here, and you managed to dial a phone. Woo!
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think I see Atangelo's in the chat.
I don't, because I have him blocked.
Since he can't get through the screeners. And I think here's my opinion about people like Atangelo and that guy that just got through about the Planned Parenthood. I don't think they clearly don't have any self-awareness, because they have to realize, if they did, that they're not doing their team any favors. They're not coming across looking very good. And so if that's what Christianity represents, then you're really doing damage to your team.
Well, I don't put Otangelo in the same, despite the fact that I haven't blocked, I don't put him in the same category as that last caller. I don't know if whether that last caller was a Christian or not. I don't know anything about them other than they decided they'd prank call a live call-in show, which happens all the time. So I'm not going to dump them in the Christianity bucket. Now, Otangelo, I put in the category with a number of apologists who are only interested in sticking to their script and preaching and not actually having a conversation or learning anything. Because after all this time, I mean, I've tried, and Johnny's tried, and J Mike's tried, everybody's tried, and you make no headway with even the simplest understanding of the basics of what science is or isn't saying. Anyway, I don't want to get on my sermon horse.
But I think they do it. I've been trying to understand the motivation of people like that. And tell me what you think, Matt, because you've experienced it so much. Either they feel compelled by God, like God has given them this assignment, if you will, like they're missionaries to the atheist YouTubes, and God, they just look at it like, I'm just going to sow the seed, and God's going to do His work as I put His word out there.
Yeah,
is that kind of how you see them?
I think some of them are that way. That's definitely the way Westboro Baptist Church is. If you talk to Westboro, that's what they will actually say. We don't care if you get saved or not. We don't have any feelings for you at all. Our job is to tell you, and you either accept it or you don't. Go ye therefore into all world and preach the gospel to all nations, and we're going to keep doing it until everybody's heard. They don't genuinely give a crap whether or not the poo they're flinging sticks. They're just in the position of needing to fling poo.
Yeah, and they don't really, they're not looking at a result. We've got the lines open. Call in again, unless you're prank call. Don't call if you prank call, but call if you have a question for any of us. Comment, something you want to talk about. Also, hit the like and subscribe button. We appreciate that. It builds up our channel, gets our audience bigger. Genevieve.
I do have a question for you, Matt, because, as we've established, you've been doing this for so long, and you are an expert. It is so satisfying watching you, because you can take down these tired arguments with your eyes closed. But I wonder, has there ever been a call that you've received that just really stood out to you, where you actually you felt like you either had a fruitful conversation that grew you as a person, or that you actually reached somebody there in the moment? I know that can be difficult, because I feel like a lot of what you do, and at least a lot of what I try to do on my platforms, is just plant those seeds. But is there any one call or situation that's really stood out for you?
Oh, loads of them. Now I'm going to be hard pressed to actually remember them and remember specifics. But I mean, actually having a conversation that reaches people happens more often than a lot of us tend to remember. I'd say there was at least one of those. Maybe two of them just yesterday on Atheist Experience. It happens. I thought you were going to go a different direction, because one of the questions is like, oh, was there ever a call that stumped you? And the answer is kind of like, yes. There were plenty of times where someone would call in with something that I don't know the specifics of what they're talking about, because, I don't have a PhD or 12 PhDs in 23 things. But, I know for a fact, based on the email that we get, some of the calls, that we've done things and said things that have benefited people. And I think, like Hank called in yesterday with questions, and Arden and I addressed it, and Hank left with just acknowledging, oh yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way. And there was also the caller who was still struggling with a fear of hell, which was a really frustrating conversation, because I was like, what's the point? You just keep asking, how is it that Matt's not afraid of hell? And I'm like, because I don't believe in it anymore. The same reason I'm not afraid of monsters under my bed. And I think the thing that we were trying to get to, which Arden did a better job of kind of getting out of him than I did, because I was just like, what is it that you're actually afraid of? And I don't think he's afraid of hell. I think he's afraid in a general sense of, what if I'm wrong? Mm-hmm. And literally today, while I was streaming on Twitch, somebody came into the channel, and they hadn't seen yesterday's show, but they were like, I'm an atheist. I don't believe this stuff anymore, but I'm constantly dealing with this nagging feeling. Like, what if I'm wrong? What if I'm wrong? What if I got it wrong? And I'm like, yeah, because you were indoctrinated to think this is the biggest thing ever. And unlike the monster under the bed that, generally speaking, adults don't continue to believe in, the God that you were indoctrinated to believe in, or that taught to believe in, or were previously convinced of, the adults around you, 70 some odd % of them, still believe in that. And so it's like, how arrogant is it of me to reach the conclusion this is BS? And that's the wrong way to look at it. It is, if there was a God that loved me and cared about me, why is it not obvious? Why is that God not interacting with me? Why is it fear of an afterlife, which I have no reason to think there is an afterlife, that is miring me in anxiety and concern and depression? I know people that talk about waking up after 50 years of not believing with a nightmare about hell. And they're, in the daytime, their conscious mind doesn't believe there's a hell. Your brain does a lot of stuff, and guilt and indoctrination are huge, huge tools. I mean, you could say, all of us have been indoctrinated into atheism to some extent. How do you argue against that? And so, while we get calls that are not particularly they're not particularly productive, there are other calls where we've definitely helped people. And there are calls where the person that I'm on the phone with may not benefit directly or obviously, but somebody else will, and that person will email.
Yeah, I remember that call yesterday. The guy afraid of hell, and I think Arden did a really good job of addressing the trauma associated with it, because in his mind, and that's what you're talking about. I've known people who, in their head, have known for years that hell is not a real thing, and yet they'll wake up in the middle of the night with night sweats, and that's because of the indoctrination from a young child and the trauma associated with that. So it can lodge in places that we're not even aware of and really can't logically deal with. It's just something we have to wrestle with internally, emotionally. But that's a good point. I've personally, Matt, dealt with or run into many people since I started co-hosting and things with Atheist Experience a couple of years ago. I can't tell you the number of people I've run into and have told me that they personally benefited. They were on the edge or questioning, and your show and your conversations with
our
people,
show.
Yeah, our show. And your conversations with people really helped them move from magical thinking and ideologies they were born with that didn't make sense into logic and reason and reality. And they're grateful for it. I mean, it's just been, it's an amazing thing. I've heard you say, and I've experienced this. I've had people, since I've become more public, I've had people tell me, you're just trying to turn people away from God.
Yep.
You're trying to convert people to atheism.
Yep.
And I know you've experienced that, and I know Seth has dealt with that, and our parents are all, but we're not. We're just trying to get people to think rationally, to ask questions.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'd be happy if everybody stopped believing in things that didn't have good evidence. But getting them to understand that is the primary goal. I'm a skeptic first.
Right.
I'm a humanist and a skeptic first, and the atheism is kind of secondary to both of those. It's not as important to me that someone agree with me on everything, including whether or not there's a God, as it is that they're doing their best to try to consistently be rational. There are things that I believe that are probably just absolutely ridiculously not true, but the difference is that when those are pointed out to me and it's shown how and why I've come to, believe in something for fallacious reasoning, I give them up. I don't have any choice but to give them up. I cannot just choose to keep believing something in the face of evidence to the contrary.
So how often do you have conversations, or do you anymore, with your parents as they have, dealt with you being an outspoken atheist? Do you have those conversations anymore?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so.
We kind of stuck, drew a line in the sand. The last conversation I had with my mom was a couple Christmases ago. It was 6 hours long, and it started with a comment I made about Trump, and it led to anything and everything about religion. And the only thing good that came out of it is that the next day she came up to me and she's like, "Oh, I think I understand something." And I was like, "Oh boy, here we go," because I thought the whole conversation was starting over. And she said, "You don't believe the Bible's true. So if I reference the Bible, you don't have any reason to think that it's true. And so you would need to be convinced that the Bible's true before I would be able to use it." And I was like, hallelujah. It's nearly miraculous. One of the 53,000 points I made yesterday stuck. And it was really nice. But we don't talk about it anymore because, I mean, they've admitted that they are closed-minded on this subject, that they are believers. They're going to be believers till they're dead, that they're not interested in having these conversations. They think it's perhaps sinful to have those conversations. And it's one of those things where they're in a really difficult position because they love me and they know I'm a good person. And yet they also think that I am leading people to hell and working for Satan. How do you live? This is why I have pity and some, really strong empathy for my parents. They're just as much a victim of this as I was. They indoctrinated me, but it's not like they were twirling their mustaches going, we're going to make our child believe stupid stuff. Mm-hmm. They did what they thought was best. And for whatever reason, they are terrified of actually engaging in an honest conversation about it. And part of it came when, my mom has been sitting in a chair, reading her Bible and watching TV preachers for my entire life. That's what she does. Wow. And then I find out that actually she doesn't know shit about the Old Testament. Not at all. Will tell you that. Doesn't bother reading it. Doesn't care about it. It's all about Jesus. She might as well have only ever had a limited edition, grossly edited New Testament sitting next to her all those years. Because she doesn't know it. She doesn't understand. So we would get into stuff. And when I start talking about slavery, she would do that's the Old Testament thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's Genevieve. You come from a different place. Your parents were not. I mean, Genevieve.
Very much so.
Yeah, tell us again how you got involved in this stuff.
Oh my gosh. Well, so I'm a part of a lot of ex-Christian groups now, and I try to help people, especially when they're dealing with those what ifs. What if I'm going to hell? And I come from the perspective of somebody who was like, I never bought into any of this. My parents were both pretty much anti-theists to a point. My mom was raised Catholic, and she adored Greek mythology, and she saw Sunday school as like an extension of that. And I think she was maybe 13 when she realized that all of the adults in the room were actually being serious and thought this was history. And she said, oh, no. Like, and, my dad, he immigrated here from China in 1960 to the Bible Belt and was bullied mercilessly by Southern Baptists. And so I was raised with no religion, really. I was raised with, instead of going to church on Sunday, I went to the California Academy of Sciences and the zoo and went to science camp. And as an adult, I moved to the Bible Belt and, talk about culture shock. I had always thought that these beliefs in demons and angels and distrusting evolution, all of these things, I thought those were like fringe crazy things that just, Ken Ham and yada yada believed in. And then I realized, I was like, oh, these are my friends. These are my in-laws. This is my family.
It's still kind of fringe, but not as fringe as it should be.
Yeah, exactly. And it is fringe. But when you're living in like a small town in the South, in the Carolinas, I might recognize that it's fringe because I've been all over this country. I've talked to plenty of Christians who don't hold those beliefs, who do, see Jesus in a more liberal light. They're not biblical literalists. They're not evangelicals. But if you go to these small towns, then you will, if you grew up there, you might never meet somebody who believes in evolution.
And these people vote, and these people run for office. That's why Genevieve got involved in these conversations, is she saw that what these people were doing to our country, and how it's important to be involved in these conversations. We have a call from Kyle in Indiana, wants to talk about the hell thing.
Well, before we get to Kyle real quick, I just want to say it's great to have Genevieve come to that realization because my ex-wife, Beth, who I'm still great friends with, she gave a talk at one of the atheist conventions called Yes, We Really Believe That, because it was exhausting for her to keep running up against lifelong atheists who are like, nobody really believes there was a talking snake. Nobody really believes that. And so she went through all these things and she's like, yeah, we really did believe that. And And when the lifelong atheist would just like, oh, well, you guys are stupid or whatever else. I mean, it's like, my IQ didn't go up when I stopped believing. I might be colloquially smarter than I was, but my IQ didn't go up. And I wasn't stupid then. I was indoctrinated and believed things along with everybody else.
And
It's
yes,
just-
that is so important. Oh my gosh.
It's embarrassing, Matt, for me, I know you probably I felt this over the years. It's embarrassing to look back and think, oh my God, I believed that stuff as an adult.
Yeah.
That there were demons and angels fighting each other in my room, and there they go. Oh my God.
That if I touched a Ouija board, I might get possessed.
Yeah. Let's
Don't listen
talk to
that sick
Kyle.
music.
Let's see if I can get Kyle on here. Atangela's trying to get on, but he's not getting on. Kyle, are you on?
Hey, Dave, Genevieve, Matt. How y'all doing?
Doing well, Kyle.
Hey, Kyle. Good to
Good.
have you. What can we do for you today?
Well, briefly, I just wanted to say congrats on the show. I'm looking forward to everything that you're putting out.
Thank you,
It's
buddy.
good to be a part of it. And my topic is very brief. I just wanted to touch on what was already said. I'm one of those people who deals with constant nightmares of the hell that I was indoctrinated to. And it really pisses me off, honestly, because these are choices I did not get to make as a child. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just agreeing with you.
These are choices I did not get to make as a child, yet they are following me into my adulthood. And while it's not the most severe issue I deal with, it's definitely an annoyance. I don't believe in hell, but these dreams keep coming to me. And it actually makes me even more passionate about activism in my non-belief, because there are people like me who have dealt with this or are dealing with this, and I feel like I could, maybe be a voice for them. I just kind of wanted to know, what do you guys think about dealing with? I mean, you just touched on it a little bit, but could you expand a little bit on how nightmares kind of play into people's psyche when it comes to indoctrination?
Yeah. I mean, first of all, I'll recommend you go back and listen to the call from yesterday's Atheist Experience, because Arden's answer is going to be better than mine. But one of the points that she was making is that teaching children hell is child abuse.
Yep.
And even if you learned it as an adult, religions are very good at building protective barriers around the ideas so that you don't question, so that you feel guilty for questioning at all. And the popularity of them are such that this is abusive. You are the victim of a particularly pernicious trauma where you've been trained to believe something, so that even when you get to a point where you realize, oh, I don't have good reason to believe that, the part of you that doesn't rely on good reason, the part of you that is your emotional brain, the part of you that is afraid, what are we most afraid of? We are most afraid of ostracization. We are most afraid of being excluded, because our ancient ancestors, our tribal ancestors, if you were kicked out of the tribe, that was pretty much death, because we are cooperative social creatures. You can't build the internet and build your highway and grow your own food and everything. Very few people have the capacity to be remotely self-sufficient. It takes a village. And so if the threat is you go along with the rest of us or we will kick you out, that's basically a threat of death. And what you've gone through, that many of us have gone through, is there is this big threat that if you don't believe and if you don't do what God wants you to do, that you're going to suffer hell. That is a fate worse than death, because it's eternal torment and torture. It is death times, well, infinity, but you can't really do that because it's not a quantity. Anyway, setting aside the pedantic stuff, your brain has been abused by this idea. And the thing you got to realize is you're probably going to have nightmares for a while, maybe not forever. Generally speaking, it's going to get better. But in much the same way that if you had a nightmare about a scarecrow monster and it startled you and woke you up, it wouldn't impact your daily life. So don't beat yourself up over what your brain does when you're asleep, because you don't have any control over that. And as long as you're not sitting around like a ball of anxiety over this, in your daily life, just kind of give yourself a pass to have bad dreams. You didn't choose them any more than you chose the indoctrination.
Right.
That's good.
And that makes sense.
Well, I like your reaction to it, Kyle, in that you're not just going to sit here and take it. You're going to push back, and you're going to get involved in this conversation. You're going to try to make the world a better place for people who've experienced things like you have. And I appreciate that, because that's you taking it on, so to speak. And that's a mature way to deal with it, I think.
Yeah.
Genevieve, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I just want to say that I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry that you were indoctrinated and you were traumatized. What you are dealing with is a legitimate trauma. And that's not fair. And it's a shame that so many people go through it. And just like Dave said, I think it's so admirable that you are ready to face this head on and try to help people that are in a similar situation. I know that, I've dealt with some particularly difficult times that don't have to deal with this existential trauma per se, but times when I've had horrific nightmares or haven't been able to sleep because something tragic had happened in my life. And something that did really help was reaching out to other people who felt the same way, talking to a therapist. That can go really far. And not to sound hokey, but meditating before you go to bed can be really, really helpful. Surprisingly helpful. That's exactly what my therapist told me to do. And I think that it's going to be a long journey, and you might not be able to get over them. And I don't want you to ever think that just because you still have this subconscious fear, it doesn't mean that your logical capacity or your critical thinking is broken. It is perfectly acceptable and understandable that you are still afraid, because that is so deep rooted. And I just hope, you're gentle on yourself.
Yeah, that's good.
Well, I try to be. And honestly, it's the people in this community that have given me my freedom back. Whether it be Dave, Matt, Genevieve, anyone who speaks on these issues makes me feel more comfortable that, this is normal, relatively, and I'm going to get through it. And
Yes.
anyone out there who's dealing with the same thing, you're going to get through it.
100% you will get through this.
That's good.
Well, thank you for taking my call tonight, guys.
You bet, man. Good job.
Thanks. Good luck.
Have a good one.
We had, that's a common. Sorry, I gotta still note this. We hear that way too often, don't we? It's just too often that people deal with the trauma associated with. I mean, it's. I feel completely fine calling it child abuse, because that's what it is.
No. I get so tired when I hear somebody bring up Pascal's wager, just because it's dumb and exhausting. Nobody should make that argument in the first place. But one thing that it doesn't bring up when you ask, well, what's the harm in believing, is that there is so much harm in believing, because it's not just believing in God. It's taking on all of this baggage. It's taking on all of his draconian rules. It's not okay.
Nope. Well, we have another call about the same subject, similar subject. Y'all good with that?
Sure.
Bev in South Carolina. Hi, Bev. How are you?
Good.
You want to know if the host felt a feeling of relief in terms of fear of death and hell after leaving religion. Matt?
Yes.
Oh, absolutely. My life improved in every way, measurable or otherwise. And I know that that's not common for everybody, but that's the way I felt. And I've got no complaints.
Did you, Matt, have a lingering, as the caller you had yesterday and Kyle just now, because you were raised in it as a child. I wasn't. I came into it as an 18-year-old. So I didn't have that fear of hell embedded in me. But did you feel any lingering after effect when you let go of it in those areas?
No, because so my theology had changed quite a bit. like I said, when I left home at 18 and joined the Navy, I largely didn't care about this stuff. But as I met other people and met people who had different beliefs, I kind of reworked my idea of theology into a more liberal version of Christianity, and probably bought into notions that, there's not a hell to worry about, or that God wouldn't do that. I just invented my own thing, the same way that most people do. Mm-hmm. But I never had a fear of hell to begin with, because I walked down the aisle at the age of 5 and accepted Jesus into my heart. So, excuse me. I knew that I was going to heaven and not to hell.
I see.
And when I found my way out of it, because I didn't get scared into Christianity because of hell, and I didn't find my way out of it having to do anything with hell. So the hell thing never had any power over me at all. I was convinced for other bad reasons and became unconvinced. And when I found my way out, it was liberating, because not only do I not have the notion that there's somebody watching everything I do, which is itself liberating, but I figured out that I had been wrong for my entire life, and now I didn't have to be wrong anymore. Now I believe something for really bad reasons, and when I found out that there were bad reasons, I said, hey, I can't believe that anymore. And that was wonderful, finding out that people say, oh, well, nobody likes to be wrong. Nobody knows if they're wrong. Being wrong feels exactly like being right until you find out that you're wrong. And nobody runs around saying, I know I'm wrong, but I'm going to keep believing this anyway. I mean, you just don't operate that way. So you think you're right. And that's true. I'm an obsessive learner. I study stuff all the time. I have 50,000 fucking hobbies. It's disgusting. My house is just full of every hobby under the sun. And then now there's more of them, because Arden's gotten back into clay. And I was like, oh, I want to learn to do that too.
I'm jealous.
So yeah.
I'm loving the crochet hobby most of all, by the way.
It's been ages since I've actually done any, but yes.
Bev, does that speak to your question about feeling relief? How about you? How do you feel since leaving it?
I feel a great deal of relief, but in fact, the thing that's interesting to me that I noticed is that I was afraid of death. I was afraid of hell. I was afraid of, the tribulation and the rapture and all that kind of stuff when I was a Christian. And I actually didn't realize how afraid I was on a daily basis. I had nightmares and things like that, until I realized this stuff isn't true. And the relief that I felt was like, it was just incredible. And like the more, like it's, the things that you've had impacted in your mind over a lifetime of this stuff, it takes time to unpack. Mm-hmm. But I just find myself becoming more and more relieved. So I just find it, I found it really interesting that I was so afraid of death while I was a Christian, because of, okay, well, what if I backslide? And these scriptures that contradicted each other about whether you're once saved, always saved, or if you backslide, and if you, the different churches follow their different beliefs, and it was just like, it was all so sketchy, if you're actually gonna be okay or not. So I just wondered.
I gotta thank you though, Bev. I gotta thank you, because this question, this conversation, and the things that you said just gave me an idea for a video, because I do 4 videos a month for the Atheist Experience Patreon project. And it gave me an idea for a video that I'm going to probably have to sit down and do early next week. It's just too good of an idea not to do. But I don't want to tell you what it is. No, I'm not going to tell you. One of the other YouTubers out there will steal the idea and get it done before me, because I'm slow.
Smart.
You just have to give credit to Bev P from South Carolina, though.
I will thank Bev.
Yeah, name drop.
Name drop. No, Bev. That's the fear. As 2 years ago, when I started talking about dying out loud, that became that I was immediately struck by how frightened Christians were of death and the conversation around death. And as an atheist dealing with a terminal illness, I started talking about that and saying the quiet things out loud. And I found that the Christians ran from the conversation and the atheists ran toward it. And that I didn't think about it. I never had thought about it. Like you said, you talked about fear, but when you think about evangelicalism as a subset of Christianity, but the one that I talk about the most, because that's the water I swam in, its stock in trade is fear. If you take fear out of that, they have nothing. Fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. The fear of death, everything is based around fear. And so that it comes as no surprise when you think about it in those terms that they would be afraid of death. You would think they would be so excited. I'm going to die. I'm going to be with Jesus. I'm going to wake up with Jesus. And there's something wrong with that. There's something amiss here, that there's such a fear surrounding that subject. But when you think about the terminology that is embedded within Christianity, within evangelicalism, then it does make sense. So,
Oh, and fear, and like currently, right now, like the state of things in the world, I hear Christians that are literally terrified because they, the devil is doing it. The devil is doing these terrible things in the world, and it's so bad, and they're terrified because of this tribulation, and they're prepping for the last days, and it's heartbreaking.
Well, they've got to have an enemy, and that's their enemy. This boogeyman. They've got to have a boogeyman.
Always. And, I do want to offer just, my brief thoughts, even though I can't speak on this as somebody who left religion because I never had in the first place. So I can't speak on whether or not I had relief leaving it. But I will just briefly say that, and I'm sorry if I get emotional, but there was a moment last year when I was dealing with a really difficult situation. It was, the worst thing I could ever think of dealing with. And this is after living in the Bible Belt for 5 years and having so many people ask me, why don't you believe in Jesus? Or everybody around me accepting it as truth. And I won't count this as my atheist in a foxhole moment, but at one point, I kind of threw my hands in the air and I said, okay, God, everybody apparently wants us to meet. So if you want to meet, like, this is your only window of opportunity. I don't need you to, and this is when my father was dying. I was like, I don't need you to save him. I just need you, if you ever want to reach me, like, now is the time to give me a sign. And when I didn't get anything,
how'd that go? Anything?
Yeah, no, nothing happened. In fact,
Crickets.
I could rant about how upset I was at, the nurses that were religious because, they, as soon as they left the room saying their stuff about God's plans, I just said, I pray to God that my dad didn't hear you because, like, he would want to rip your throat out and he's in a coma. But when nothing happened, like, I didn't feel lost. I didn't feel defeated. I felt relieved because that meant that the end was the end and there's nothing wrong with that. Like, that is so much, heaven or hell, like, both of them sound like torture. If I ever went to heaven and realized, like, if I somehow found Jesus and went to heaven, like, I would be terrified. I would be so pissed because that means that there's trillions of people at this point who are burning and being tortured because they were skeptical or they were born in the wrong place. Like, there is no justice in that. I see being your best as fighting against injustice. And so if I went to heaven, like, I would go full on Lucifer and try to overthrow the government because that's not cool. And so knowing there was, not hearing anything in that moment, the window closed, and, I think this is so much better. there's no worry about what happens. When I die, I will be feeling just as much FOMO, fear of missing out, as I did the first 13 plus billion years of the existence of the universe. And I'm cool with that. Life's exhausting. I'll be happy when it's over.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what do you think happens to us after we die?
That's it.
That's it. The lights go out.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I get asked that all the time because of what I'm dealing with. And I have people say, you're okay with there being nothing after this life? And my response is, why isn't this life enough for you?
Yeah.
You greedy motherfucker.
Right? There's that quote that says, I won't remember it verbatim, but it basically says that, really you live twice. And the second time you live is when you realize that
It's on my shirt.
It is. Oh my God. Thank you. Yes, exactly.
It's one of our, there are two lives. The second one begins when you realize you only have one.
Much more eloquent than me.
Thank you.
Dave.
It's a poem by Mario de Andrade.
Yeah.
It's not original. Well, Bev, thank you for the call. I hope that was helpful.
Thanks, Bev.
Bye.
It was, and I appreciate you so much.
You bet.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for calling in. We've got Matt, not Matt Dillahunty. We've got Matt in North Carolina.
I know Matt in North Carolina.
Do you?
Maybe. I don't know.
There may be more than one.
I know a Matt in North Carolina too. No way.
Well, Matt, we all know you. What do you have on your mind?
Hey, Dave, Genevieve, and Matt. I know Dave knows me. I shower with him every day.
Yeah, you're
shower
Matt,
Dave.
He's shower curtain Matt. He bought a shower curtain with my logo on it.
I thought about
every day,
installing that.
Yeah, Matt, you should get one. How's the shower curtain working out, Matt?
It's great. Really inspirational, honestly. I know I've told you that before, but it does change the way that just something like that, just, you shower every day, and it's something that's kind of there with you every day now. And as much as it sounds like a joke to say I'm showering with Dave, it really does inspire me, and it's motivational. So
Carpe
it's been a great addition.
Diem.
Well, I appreciate your support.
Sure thing. So I did have a topic. This is something I've thought a lot about, and since I have three really smart people to talk to about it right now, I wanted to get some other viewpoints on it, because I'm not convinced that my line of thinking is correct on this. But I've seen various therapists over the years for anxiety type things, and some of it does get into like the relationships and things like that, because they tend to be an area of concern and issues. And I've over the years tried to get really careful about making sure that I'm selecting a therapist that is not either non-religious or is going to do the best they can to not bring religion into their practice. And so what I've been curious about is it really truly possible for someone who is a believer to 100% exclude their beliefs from the advice or whatever that they're doing when they're providing therapy services to someone?
Matt, your thoughts?
Can you state the last part of the question one more time? Because I think I misunderstood it.
Yeah. So is it possible, do you believe it's possible for a therapist or someone that's providing those mental health services who also is a believer in some religion, is it possible for them to actually provide those services completely objective without having some kind of influence, maybe even subconsciously, with their beliefs kind of working their way in there?
Well, all right. If you're looking for absolutes, then no, I don't think there's any absolutes. But if the basic question is it possible for a believer to provide good science-based counseling? Yes. There are people who view their religious belief as this is mine and it doesn't fit and it doesn't necessarily work for somebody else and I shouldn't be injecting it in there. There are also people who don't take it all that seriously. I mean, I could have been an outstanding counselor for the years where I was a believer but didn't really care about it that much. The reason I support the Psychotherapist Project is because why not find a therapist that isn't going to have that potential bias at all, right? You might find that a therapist or counselor who doesn't have a belief in God the one you get may be terrible. There are really crappy crappy therapists out there. So for me, I would prefer a counselor that is going to use science-based medicine, that is going to use the best psychological tools. And I generally don't care what their personal beliefs are. The Secular Therapist Project helps me make sure that I'm not going to have to deal with that bias leaking in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is important.
Matt, are you familiar with them? The Recovering from Religion has a division called the Secular Therapy Project, and they basically do your screening for you, in other words, so you can be fairly certain that this therapist you get is going to be coming from a secular viewpoint and not a religious one.
Yep, I am aware of it. I definitely even used that during my last round of looking for a local therapist. And the problem is that the coverage is not great right now. There aren't all that many therapists on there, especially in my area. And so I might have been able to try and get a hold of one of those and do virtual appointments, but I was really looking for more of an in-person type thing. And there weren't any that were driving distance for me at the time.
Not to out your location, but are you anywhere near Winston-Salem by any chance?
I'm in Charlotte.
Okay. I mean, that's a little bit of a hike, but it's not too far. I guarantee Charlotte's a big city. If you look and check out secular therapists, you should be able to find somebody in Charlotte. But if not, I actually have a really good friend who is a wonderful therapist in Winston-Salem, and she's not my therapist because we're friends, and you can't really do that. The other thing to remember is that like every therapist, which is so important to distinguish because there's so many religious counselors who like mask as therapists, and that grinds my fucking gears. But any good therapist who has their master's and is licensed to practice should understand exactly what the procedure is, which is never to tell you what to do with your life or what they think you should do, but just be there as a licensed sounding board who can help you through difficult situations. It can be hard. I've had bad therapists before, and it sucks. But good on you for keeping on and looking out for one, because therapist shopping sucks, and I wish you the best of luck.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate that.
But I think to Matt's point, to Matt Dillahunty's point, yes, there are people who can separate their personal beliefs from the work that they're supposed to be doing as a therapist. I think you've got to do your best to make that clear on the front end. I'm here to receive professional therapy. I don't want to hear what you believe. And if that leaks into the conversation, then I'm out of here.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. I think the one that I'm seeing right now actually is doing a really great job of that, but I think I have maybe an irrational fear that subconsciously they're still influenced by their beliefs, and that might work its way in. I guess to give a very specific example, and this may honestly not have had anything to do with her beliefs, but several years back, I had a therapist that was also kind of doubling as my dating coach at the time, and I told her, I'm an atheist, and I can't see a relationship with any sort of believer working for me. I'm pretty confident in that. And she basically said, well, I think you're limiting, your dating pool quite a bit by doing that. And maybe you should be a little bit more open-minded about making a connection with someone that is. And I actually did follow that advice and ended up marrying a evangelical Christian, and that did not end well. I personally should have known better myself. I did know better, but I kind of went against my rule, and I do think that the therapy was kind of part of that, but again, not her fault, it's my own. But that's a case where I think that maybe it's possible that her beliefs were kind of guiding her in that direction to guide me there. I could be wrong.
Quite likely.
Yeah, that's a very rational fear. And, like I said, therapy shopping sucks, but, I'm sure you'll find somebody. And if you DM me on TikTok, it's probably the easiest way to reach me. I know a lot of people in North Carolina, and I hope I can help you out.
Yeah, let me know, Matt. I can connect you with Genevieve, and we can find you somebody maybe. Thanks, buddy.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Yep.
Yep,
Thank
take
you.
care.
Great name.
Yeah, I thought I knew you would say that.
Ayo.
Okay, this next caller is I think it's going to be a very special call. We've got Bevan in North Carolina, and I have a feeling she's really hot too. So, Bevan, what can we do for you?
I don't think you're supposed to say things like that.
Oh, you're right. I'm not.
No.
He can,
was-
but I can. I
that
hear
was-
she's a wonderful, beautiful lady, the most beautiful in all the Carolinas.
Ah, yes. I think that's probably correct.
Thank you, Genevieve.
Yeah.
Well, she's
You're
serious
very
topic
sweet.
though. She wants to talk about managing family members dying with unwelcome religious support. What would you like to ask about that, Bev?
Well, I think I'm asking for Matt and Genevieve because I'm pretty familiar with Dave's feelings that
You hear me all the
about
time.
this. Well, as I don't know if Matt knows. I'm sure Genevieve probably knows that I'm dealing with a pretty big, I'd say, crisis as far as with my mother because she's very, very ill, and there's a very good likelihood she might not make it. We're still at the stage where we're still trying to treat what we can treat and hope that she does, but we also have to be somewhat realistic. And of course, I'm getting an overwhelming amount of love and support from friends and family, and it has surprised me how much it's all religious, even from people that normally my day-to-day experiences with. There's no religion based. I mean, they're just friends, and we never discuss religion. But now it's all prayers and this and that, and I do understand that that's an easy way for people to just say, "I've really got good thoughts about you." I'm hoping for the best, and especially in the South, it's very hard for me not to sometimes say, "Well, I'm praying that this happens," and I don't mean I'm getting on my knees and praying. I'm just meaning I'm hoping it doesn't happen. But then I'll get some that really are, may God, watch out over your mom and
It's like
heal
when people
her.
say
And I'm
bless
like,
you when you sneeze.
Yeah.
huh?
People say
Yeah.
bless you when they sneeze. They
And I
don't
don't-
actually think there's a demon in you.
No, and right now, I'm just saying thank you. But there's part of me a little bit is like, you've got to know, how I feel about this. And then when they get very specific, there's a part of me that almost just wants to say, that would be wonderful, except I don't want that if God's not going to do that for everyone that's in this hospital and everyone that's sick and everyone, if you're taking that stance. And I don't know. I guess what I just wondered, and I know Genevieve, you fairly recently went through this yourself, and that is how to right now, just ignore it. I mean, as far as that is concerned, but it's almost like I feel like I'm betraying just my own feelings, my own beliefs by saying thank you, because I don't know. And I was wondering how that, it's not the time or place or hill to die on right now when my mother's suffering, but I just don't know how to express that. I was just wondering how you express that, Genevieve, if you did it all. And, Matt, if you've gone through that yourself too.
Yeah.
What do you say to people?
So, gosh, I mean, I wish that I couldn't speak to this. And, I have known about your mom, and I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this. Something like, for the most part, for a lot of it, I let it, roll off like water on a duck's feathers, because this is something that means a lot to those people, and to them it's all they can do, and it's this biggest thing in their heart. But at the same time, like, it's okay to have your own boundaries. It's okay to say that this is upsetting to me. And what I would do in that situation is just put out a big PSA. That's what social media is for. You can just say, hey, like, this is an update. I would really, I hope that you can respect my wishes. I please, if you want to pray in private, that is beautiful. I understand that means a lot to you, but please don't bring it up to me. It's just not what I want to hear. And that should be okay. When I was dealing with it, like I said, I coped with it by making inside jokes to my comatose father. And that was, that's a fun memory that I have. He doesn't, but, granted, when I did find out that there was nothing we could do, I saw my aunt post something about God and Jesus in like a very Christian nationalisty way. And so while I was bawling, I ranted to her about the just how wrong she was about everything and how God wasn't real. And there's basically, take a deep breath, put yourself first, because it's not just your mom that is going through this. It is you. You are her daughter. This is a hard time, and if somebody doesn't want to respect your boundaries, that is on them. And I think it's important to find a way to respectfully tell people to F off if they need to. I only had one person respond badly and tell me that my father was burning in hell. But as soon as that happened, I had 5 Christians in my comments saying, I am so sorry. That was so out of line. She's not wrong, but you shouldn't say that.
Yeah.
But what do you have to say, Matt?
So first of all, I loved your story, and I don't want to really add to it because I think it's great. Other than I don't think it's always worthwhile to try to find a respectful way to tell people to fuck off. If they're saying things like your dad's burning in hell, I don't need to be respectful at all anymore. Yeah. And I would also, all the other Christians who were in there saying, doing they're not wrong, I would call them out as well. I tell you, Bev, I've not been. I'm a little odd, different. I don't know. When my grandfather died, I went to the funeral with my mom and dad, and I didn't cry. And this was before I was an atheist and before I was out. And I remember asking my mom, is this weird that I'm not going to cry? And my mom was like, no, everybody, does things differently. I don't do much crying. As a matter of fact, there was a period of time where I wanted to cry for lots of reasons, and I just didn't. And then I remember a day where the whole world came crashing down on my shoulders while I was driving, and I was getting ready to just bawl. And I got so happy and so excited because I was finally going to cry that it overrode the desire to cry. I was like, hooray, I'm going to cry, which means now I'm not. But I deal with death in a really practical way. And I like the notion of trying to make sure that I treat people right in the one and only life that I know I have, so that I don't sit around with regrets of, I wish I'd patched things up with I have if my mom and dad were to die tomorrow, I would be sad that they're not in my life anymore, but I would not be sitting here going, oh, wow, I really wish I'd have done things differently. I don't. I'm comfortable with the way things are. And if people were, if my mom were dying, she's a Christian, and so I just expect I'm going to put up with a bunch of Christian BS. But if people started talking about Dave and coming to me and saying, obnoxious things that way, I just straight up call them out. And I remember, this is not anything to do with me. But there was a magician who was a secular humanist, who was someone who just flat out for his entire life refused to tell a lie, was one of the sweetest people you'd ever meet. And when he was dying, a Christian magician came to tell him that he was going to go to hell. And I was not involved, but there were a number of other magicians who basically lit into this person, kind of the same way that, Genevieve got support from other Christians as well. I agree with what Genevieve said. You've got to figure out the best way to stand up for yourself. You're going through this in addition to your mom. And frankly, it's nobody else's business. I appreciate the fact that there are people who are concerned about how you're doing. And that's wonderful. To be concerned about how someone is dealing with something is wonderful. To be a busybody who suggests you're dealing with it wrong, fuck those people.
Yes.
And baby, if you can't tell them to fuck off, just send them to me. I don't mind doing that at all.
Yeah.
And for the record, baby, you are just handling this in such an amazing way. She's literally every night, all night long at the hospital with her mom, and it's been brutal. And
well, let's virtual hugs for Bev for me.
Yeah,
she's an absolute rock star in this thing.
Huge hugs. And last thing I will say on this is that when you're going through a crisis that there's nothing you can do, people will immediately say, "Oh, I'm praying for you," blah 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 blah. But what people really want is, they want to be given direction. When you're going through a crisis, they might say, "Oh, let me know if you need anything," but they're not going to follow up because they really want to be told, "Hey, I need you to do this." And that's backed up by psychology. Asking people for favors is very beneficial to their own egos, and that's exactly what they need right now. It is okay to feel like a total bitch and say, "Hey, all I need from you right now is to shut the fuck up about this being God's plan. I need you to be there for me." And leave that to yourself. You can pray in private, but for my own sake, if you really care about me, just please shut the fuck up.
Explain the plan some other day.
Exactly.
Okay, we've got one call left and 10 minutes left. Bevan, anything else, hon?
No, I just appreciate it, and I do appreciate everybody that, because I'm sure some of my friends might listen to this show, and I definitely appreciate everybody's love and support. I just, I just sometimes I cringe, and I just don't know sometimes how to accept that. So thank you for your input.
Thanks, honey.
Yeah. Anytime you want to talk.
You're the favorite caller I've ever gotten on this show, by the way. All right, bye, honey.
Bye-bye.
She was living a normal life until she got involved with me and all this atheist stuff, and her friends don't quite know what to do with me. I
don't know what to do with you.
I don't know what to do with me either. We've got Alex, he, him, South Carolina. Discuss a religious temple that has sunshine always centered in it in South Africa. Okay. Alex, you there?
I am Alexander. I was on Matt's show a couple of weeks ago, and he hung up on me.
Oh, well, you might get two in a row here. Let's go with it.
Matt,
welcome
back. You
back.
hung up on me last time I called your show. I tell you about the religious temple in South Africa, about other black boys that are being molested.
I hung up on you because you're a fraudulent prank caller, just like you are right now. And I'm pretty sure that by the time I'm done saying this, somebody will have already hung up on you.
Yep.
Yeah.
What was his deal? Yeah, he's gone. I dropped him.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that shit. I wanted Dan. There was a Dan from Vermont that called in several times, but his call kept dropping, and I wanted to talk about that because his note was church as a reliable path to truth, but for some reason his call keeps getting dropped. So I don't know. We're not going to get to find out how church is a reliable path to truth.
Trying to call him back, but we'll see. Oh,
and talking about
hello,
Dan. Hi, Dan from Vermont. Are you on?
Hello, Dan.
Yes, this is Alexander. I am Dan's friend. I appreciate how you treated him.
All right. Bye.
Goodbye.
Just what is sad. State to just you got nothing better to do than
nothing better to do, right?
I mean, cool. I'm glad you got spare time and a phone. Keep spending your spare time that way, and maybe mommy will stop paying for your phone.
I guess I should feel honored that these people have found me, huh?
It's wonderful.
Well, I'm really glad that we didn't have a serious caller because I wanted to not leave the show with you tonight, Matt, before we got a magic trick. So what do you got for us?
Oh. I don't know. What did I do for you last time? Because
you've done cards, you've done ropes, you've done rubber bands. I mean, what's your go-to when you know?
Well, it's always cards, ropes, and rubber bands. If I'm going to do something on here, I will say that on the subject of death and dying.
Yeah.
I had a friend that I worked with, and she was a Christian, but an incredibly liberal Christian. And she had a 15 at the time and eventually 16-year-old son who was dying of cancer. And she would come to me. We both smoked at the time. And so we would come down and she would ask me questions about care and science and treating the pain and everything else. And I frequently kind of apologized because I couldn't give her the kind of support that others did. And what I found out was that she was actually happy and came to me specifically because everybody else was filling her full of, platitudes and, oh, God needs another angel and all this.
Yeah.
And having somebody who didn't try to shovel that stuff at her was what she was looking for.
Mm-hmm.
I could try. I don't know how this works. I could try another rubber band trick where you can,
Genevieve's giddy.
take it like
I am
that.
giddy. I love magic.
And then, so that should be impossible to get a rubber band to be able to hang on another rubber band like that. And in order to fix it, you have to break it.
Right.
And then once you break it, then you got to put the rubber band back together. Like that.
Oh my god.
Gee, you should see him do that right in front of you. It's just uncanny. I'm watching it.
Genevieve, did you ever thread a needle?
Yeah, actually.
So I used to practice. I don't know how well this is going to show up. So this is a regular piece of rope like you'd find in any bedroom. There's no magnets.
Only your bedroom, Matt. No.
No, I don't kink shame. I think it's a pretty standard.
So I used to practice threading needles I would wrap this around my thumb and set this here, and then you would take this end right here, and you would try to go through that as quickly as you can. And get that thread on there. It becomes really easy. But that's all I have magic, anyways. Otherwise, they'll start burning me at the stake.
It's hard to do on a little screen. I know that. But Matt, thank you so much for coming on. Any closing thoughts for Matt, Genevieve?
My closing thought is I spend a lot of time in Austin, and I need to see it live.
Sure.
Because it's blowing my mind right now.
If you come to Austin and don't ping me to come out and hang out with the rest of us and see some magic, I will be disappointed. I will never do another show with you.
There you go. There's your invitation, Genevieve.
That's fair. I've been there, 3-4 times already this year. So. Well,
the nonprofit you work for is based out of there, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I was just there 2 weeks ago.
We'll make sure you get.
If you message me, just let me know when you're in town because we can definitely hang out.
That'd be fun. Maybe are they doing the magic show back downtown again? Have they opened back up?
Yes, Esther's Follies opened on June 17th. Genevieve, if you haven't been to Esther's Follies, I will take you.
Oh my God!
It's the best thing you're ever going to see. It's a musical comedy magic variety show.
Oh gosh! I have not. I'm so excited.
You will pee yourself laughing.
Yeah, it was amazing. We went a couple of years ago. We were there. And Matt, thank you. Years ago, you have given me connections. Your show have given me connections literally all over the world. I wanted to let you know that Bevan and I were planning to go to Europe this month. We had to cancel that mainly because of her mom and then COVID and all that. But we had connections from people over there that we were going to see in 5 or 6 different countries. That
you should let me know who they are because they're not inviting me. So clearly,
well, you're not dying.
Fair. I am just potentially slower.
Well, true enough. Fair enough. I will let you know. A lot of the connections I have around the world have been because I've been on your show. And a couple of years ago, when I first came to Austin, you didn't know who I was. You took a chance on me. You let me come on and came in live to the studio, and you didn't know if I'd be a bomb or an idiot or what. And you just took a chance on me. And I've always appreciated that. And you were very generous. You're always very generous with your time. And I appreciate you coming on the show tonight. It means a lot to me that you would. I mean, we got a small audience. We don't have thousands of people watching like you do every Sunday, but just that you would take some time on a Monday evening and do this means a lot.
Well, I really appreciate it, David. And you earned it all. And by the way, while you have a small audience now, this is show number 2?
Yeah.
I mean,
Never a doubt.
I'm pretty sure that we'll be having thousands of people watching, especially if you keep getting such wonderful prank callers. Because the ones who were calling my show are now calling your show, so it won't be long. I mean, maybe just unblock Otangelo.
They found us. They found us. God knows. I wanted to be hidden a little longer than this.
Well, you take care, my friend, and I'll let you know when we're heading out to Vegas or when I can finally get to, out to visit you. I'd love to sit down and have a cigar. I missed the last get together because of stuff, but yeah, keep yourself safe.
I'll send you a note. We got some stuff coming up that I'll invite you to. So
absolutely,
would love to connect with you again and hang out. Things are opening up again gradually, eventually. Been a great show. Been good to have. We got Seth Andrews on next week, folks.
Mm-hmm.
And so we appreciate all your support. Keep watching. That's
Thanks,
it.
everybody.